Nat 20. Hi folks, Merlin here, back with another Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer video. So yeah, last time we looked at issue 9, we had our first two-parter adventure, and we also had details for the Bard first and second level ready for our new character in a couple of issues time. So first off, a little bit of news. I've had the email notification saying that my next delivery has been shipped. Should have been here this morning, but the postman has not long been, Wednesday the 20th, and yeah, it's not here. So maybe tomorrow or Friday, I'll have to wait and see. But hopefully I should have my next delivery before Christmas, which would be nice to get started with. If not, it could just be my replacement issue 9, as I mentioned to their customer service department that I had two D10s instead of a D10 and a D100. But yeah, we're waiting to see what that is. So let's dive in then. So we'll get started with issue 10. So yeah, here we are. New and exclusive adventure, learn about how to roleplay NPCs. We also have a look at a couple of backgrounds, exploring the Sword Mountains, and yeah, we learn a bit about language as well, which is pretty cool. So this issue's dice is a little, and I mean little, bit of a letdown, as it's a tiny set of metal dice. Now, I know why they're small. It's probably going to be quite costly to produce larger metal dice. But yeah, quite a quaint little set. Maybe you can give it to somebody who's been afflicted with a miniaturization spell, making them roll tiny dice instead of normal dice. Yeah, nice weight to them as well, which is pretty cool. And we'll give them their first roll in a sec. So, right, yeah, before we jump over, don't forget to, of course, do all the usual, like, comment, subscribe if you haven't, and, of course, check all the links in that video description, including the Patreon, where I will be, hopefully, starting to put some exclusive content out for all of my subscribers. So, yeah, if you don't want to miss out on anything, make sure you are signed up to the Patreon. I know a lot of people are doing free memberships for certain things, so I might I'm going to be having a look this week anyway at my Patreon, so I might be putting a few changes to my tiers, and I'll also put out a freebie tier just for people who want to follow me and get updates. Right, yeah, I think it's time that we take a look through issue 10 and yeah, jump over to the table. So here we are then with issue 10. So this is the last issue of my third delivery. And yeah, going to be a pretty interesting issue. So first off, we've got our dice cast in metal. It's a nice sort of bronze. So we've got a brighter bronze for the borders and the numbers, and a nice dark sort of bronze there for the back detailing. So we'll take that out in just a sec. And here's our issue. So like I said, we've got new adventure. We learn how to play as NPCs, so new page for the DM. We have backgrounds focusing on the Sage and Charlatan. And we explore the Sword Mountains, part of the Sword Coast. Finally, we speak the tongue of the realms, which is going to be a pretty interesting page to look at. So, right, first off, let's get those dice out and give them a roll. So here they are out the bag, and yeah, they look pretty good. There's a nice weight to them, which is pretty cool. They roll nice, but I haven't had much luck on the rolls. Okay, 3, 3, 2, 8, 4, 7, and 70, and 8. Not the best, I'm guessing, but pretty cool. I do like them anyway. They're going to be a fun little set, and I think that's all they're going to be, just a fun set. Oh wow, 19. There we go. Not too bad. Second time round. But yeah, like I said, I think they must be cast in actual bronze. They got the polished bronze here and the dirtied bronze there. So yeah, pretty nice little dice. Numbers are nice and clear, so for their size, they stand out quite nicely. Yeah. Pick them up, give them their second roll. Oh, that's a little better. Still only a 3 on the D6, so we've got a 3 on the D4, 6 on the D8, 16 on the D100 there, 6 on the D8, as I said, 13 and 11, so yeah, not too bad. And like I said at the beginning, you can give these to a person who's been afflicted by the miniature spell, turned into a tiny version of themselves when making them roll dice. That's roughly the same size. Oh, well, size appropriate. Yeah, don't think I'll see much use for them, but they are a fun little collector's piece anyway. I was really surprised when Faerun mentioned we was going to be getting metal dice as part of the collection. Also getting some pretty cool dice. We're getting set with axes on the inside. That's going to be a nice little, again, collector set. Maybe a personal favourite for my dwarf character. But yeah. Right then, time to adjust the camera and we'll start taking a look through the contents of issue 10. Right, diving in to our new issue then. So we got our usual welcome introduction, full of contents for the issue then. So we got Adventure 1, Encounter 10, Deadlock Mine Part 2. Sage Advice, we have Part 2 of our movement. DM, we got our NPC page. Character creation, so we got overview of equipment and languages. And backgrounds for Sage and Charlatan. Finally then for lore, we got the locations of the Sword, Mountains and Factions, the Order of the Gauntlet. So issue 10 comes with a distinct metal mini dice set. Use them as an alternative, keep them in your collection or give them to a player to use in game. Like I said, I think I'll be using it for anyone inflicted by a miniaturization spell or drunken miniaturization potion. And we've got the QR code to D&D Beyond. And something new for this issue is actually at the bottom here, they got a detailing piece about binders. So you will be automatically sent binders. They are priced at $10.99. Retail customers can order through your usual stockist. I am going to be sending off an email saying I don't particularly want the binders. $10.99 for what we've had so far. I'm not really warranting to pay. It's been a pretty basic binder. The ones we had with Imperium, with all the Warhammer partworks, they've been really detailed. Nice interior detailing on the binder. The dividers have been a lot better. They've had subcategories as well. They probably could have done with subdividers, but that's just me. But yeah, I wasn't too keen on the freebie folder, so I'm definitely going to be not buying anymore. So I'm going to make sure I shoot off an email after filming this. So, movement part 2. Before we dive into it, one thing I forgot to mention, which somebody kindly commented on the video last time. So, for group movement over distance, it is dependent on the members in your party. So, I think you take a total value of all the party members' movement and divide it by so much in order to get how quickly they can move over certain distances. So as we've got a pretty mixed party, we've got 2 that can only move 25 feet, 2 that can move 30 feet. So yeah, it's going to be slowed down depending on which characters we take in the games for moving from location to location. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out, and hopefully crossed it over to you guys a lot better than before. So, right, moving on to part 2. So, whether you're riding, jumping, or swimming, special forms of movement can help you navigate your environment. So, yeah, walking and running is not the only way you can get about the Forgotten Realms. There's, of course, climbing, which many mountaineering adventurers will have to do. Swimming, anyone on the coast will, of course, end up having to get into the water at some point. And, of course, crawling for those tight passages in dungeons. So, yeah, each foot of movement will cost you 1 extra if you're climbing, swimming, or crawling. So you might also be required to make checks for scaling slippery surfaces, as well as pretty murky and boggy water. So jumping, this is a very specific skill. Doesn't come up all the times, but there are the odd occasion where you might be required to jump in order to hitch a ride on a dragon or something. So a character's strength will determine how well they can jump. So, for instance, we've got Razagar's Stormhelm here. So she has a strength of 14, meaning with a run-up, she can jump 14 feet or 7 feet from a standing start. So yeah, each foot cleared on the jump costs a foot of movement, and it further down the page here, I believe it mentions, yeah, so making a high jump, so movement spent jumping counts against your speed that turn. So Razagar, with a speed of 25, could run 10 for a run up, jump the 5 feet to grab a ledge, pulling herself up, and then run an additional 10 after that. So yeah, each character making a high jump can extend their arms half their height during the jump. This allows them to reach above themselves a distance equal to the height of the jump plus 1.5 times their height. Moving on for our background, then for sage advice, we have learning about NPCs. There are a number of ways that DMs can bring an adventurer's supporting cast to life. So, yeah, NPCs are an integral part of the game. They are the everyday people that you meet. They are also usually servants of the big bad, or in some cases even the big bad themselves. Making them memorable is an important piece. Not everyone's going to remember generic human bartender Bob, but they might they'll more likely remember a halfling bartender with a habit of saying terrible jokes. It's important to note a few things, so answering these 3 questions will help a DM create NPCs. So you want to ask yourself, how are they dressed? What's their background? And what do they want, and how will they go about getting it? So yeah, very nice little article detailing how to create NPCs. So sometimes you might want to have a returning NPC, and in this case you want to give them a bit more character. So as it mentions, not every barkeep should be a human named Bob, because not everyone's going to remember that. The more effort you put into them, of course, the more players will feel confident to roleplay as their own characters. However, try not to overdo it. You don't want to spend a lot of time detailing a character who's only going to be in a one adventure, and then have your players ignore the big important character that they shouldn't be ignoring because you haven't put as much detail into that character as you have the one that's only going to be there temporarily. But so yeah, there is times where an NPC may be asked to join a party. This is usually for quests where you have to deliver a messenger and their message, or sometimes protect a dignitary from a visiting city. So yeah, it's up to the DM how they will play the NPC, of course. Some NPCs may get involved with the affairs of the party. Some will try to keep to themselves. But at the end of the day, always remember to just have fun with it. Right, moving on to our character creation sections. And this time we're looking at equipment part 2. What your character does with their gear is only limited by your imagination. So the article starts by saying we've previously highlighted the gear your characters will start with. Some have obvious uses, so a food ration is a ration of food, whether it keeps you fed or is used to distract wild animals trying to eat you. There are, of course, other items that have multiple uses, and most of them are listed here, or at least the start of them. So we have our baggable bearings. These could be used to cause a following creature to encounter trouble with traction over a 10-foot squared area. They could also be used as ammo for a sling, or judging the depth of a well by dropping a couple down and seeing how far before it makes a sound. So a bell and 10 feet of string can be used either as an impromptu alarm, or even tying it to a particular creature to know where they are if you're fighting in a particularly dark area. And we got quite a few other items, so hammer and pittons, oil in a tinderbox, 50 feet of rope, bottle of ink, little bag of sand, which I quite like. So it even mentions Indiana Jones here, where he uses the bag of sand to trick the weight of a trap, that being of Temple of Doom, I think it was. But yeah, bag of sand can also be used to cover the floor, where you can help track an invisible enemy. And my favourite thing is you can always even sell it by a charismatic charlatan saying that it's fairy dust when you need quite a bit of money. And then we have mirror, candles, and a 10-foot pole there. So ready-made packs part 2. Previously we've looked at some packs, and these are the last 3. So we got a diplomat's pack. So you get a chest, 2 cases of maps and scrolls, a set of fine clothes, a bottle of ink, an ink pen, a lamp, 2 flasks of oil, 5 sheets of paper, a vial of perfume, sealing wax, and soap. Dungeoneer's pack, pretty common for a lot of adventurers. So you get a backpack, you get a crowbar, a hammer, 10 pittons, 10 torches, a tinderbox, 10 days of rations, a water skin, and 50 feet of rope. And finally, the Entertainer's pack. So this one is the pack you'll take if you are a bard or similar. So the Entertainer's pack contains a backpack, a bedroll, 2 costumes, 5 candles, 5 days of rations, a water skin, and that all-important disguise kit. Moving on to possibly one of the most fun articles I've seen so far in the collection, and that's a starting look at languages. So communicating with the denizens of Faerun is a key part of D&D, from bartering for goods to quelling a feud between warring clans. But it can help to speak the local lingo, especially if you want to overhear useful gossip. So yeah, it starts by saying there's different languages throughout Faerun. Your characters will always know the common tongue, but they might also have proficiencies in others. So check the other proficiencies and languages box on your character sheet. But there's, of course, Elvish and Dwarvish, so they are covered here, the alphabets. So if you want to, you can even write out some props of your own to help with your own missions. Very handy little guide, and get the players to try to decipher this code themselves. So the typical languages are, of course, Common, there's Dwarvish, which are commonly used by dwarves. Their script is comprised of runes, which are easy to carve in stone. Elvish, which is, of course, used by the elves. And Gnomish, so orc and goblins, giants will also speak a specific giant tongue used by ogre and giants. Orc is a language, goblin is a language spoken by the different goblinoids, and yeah. Halflings, you share a common alphabet, but are really just small humans, so yeah. We got a little bit here about the power of words. It's important to, of course, be apt at your words, unlike me. But yeah, it's good to know languages. Sometimes you might want to overhear something in a bar, and it's good to speak various different languages. There's, of course, a magical way. There's a Helm of Comprehending Languages, which is a helmet enchanted with the Comprehend Languages spell. And yeah, gives you the ability to pretty much understand any language. There are, of course, secret languages within the world, so not everything is understandable. There are also, of course, things, as we've covered, like Thieves' Cant, which is a secret mix of dialect, jargon, and hand signals that allow messages to be hidden in normal conversations. So yeah, pretty fun little article, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna try adding some language to my games. So then, moving on, we start taking a look at the Sage class background. So, learn about the D&D background that is all about, well, learning. Okay. So yeah, knowledge, they say, is power. This maxim holds true, especially for the Sage. So yeah, commonly these are wizards or studious warlocks and the like that spend quite a lot of time in their books. So yeah. Yeah, so this background works well with the wizard class, but can also be used for warlocks, artificers, and even bards. And it's not unheard of for a fighter to become involved in adventures through learning the study of fighting. So we got a box here for how to roleplay a sage. It can be quite fun and entertaining to play the smartest person in the room. It's also quite challenging, especially if there are so many ways that you can exhibit that intelligence. So yeah, choosing how your character is going to be a sage is a good way of figuring things out. And there's a few benefits here. So you'll eventually, the sage background comes packaged with the researcher feature there. So extremely useful for most quests, giving you a chance to study up in between adventures, and yeah, come to figure out a few things that others might not be able to understand themselves. And another background we have to cover is the Charlatan. So the background that's perfect for characters who wish to hide their true selves. So yeah, a pretty cool background here. The Charlatan is ideal for those who want to hide their true selves, as it mentions. So a couple of notable charlatans here are Loki and Saul Goodman. So yeah, they're both tricksters, swindlers, and con artists that have fascinated us for quite some time. So yeah, whether they're lovable or manipulative sociopaths, charlatans are an interesting characteristic to come across. So, charlatan benefits. So, your key skills are not hard to guess. Fabricators of alternative facts, you're proficient in deception, which is pretty good. And you're also pretty good when it comes to the sleight of hand skill. Role-playing a charlatan, there's different things you want to think about. Are you going to be the sort of charlatan who's bright and outgoing in public, but rather recluse? or are you even darker than that? So yeah, when you do play a charlatan, you've got to consider the important word of duplicity. You are technically playing two roles. So for example, your persona will choose to present to the world via their chosen scheme. Then the real person who hides behind that elaborate and intricate mask is of course the real one, possibly racked by guilt, secretly strangling themselves as their own consciousness, or it just gets darker down there in a deep psychological pit of misanthropy. Yeah, so it's pretty fun to play a charlatan, and yeah, it can be a nice key bit of role-playing for you to do. So moving on to our lore, we have the Sword Mountains. We reach the heights of adventure in one of the Sword Coast's most perilous regions. So if you look south or east from Phandalin, where most of our adventures are based, you'll see the view dominated by the jaggy, snow-capped range that is the Sword Mountains. So yeah, these are the highest points on the Sword Coast area. So they, of course, with most mountains, they have different types. So there's Ice Spire Peak, which is the highest summit. The southernmost point is Mount Hellenbra. And the Sword Mountains are also home to a variety of foes. So orcs have called this area their home for quite some generations. But there is, of course, atop Ice Spire Peak, the White Dragon Cryovane. Yeah, so he's not exactly the best creature to cross. He's feared even by ogres and trolls. So yeah, that just goes to show how very vicious he can be. We got a little bit here about Axelholm, which was a dwarven fortress. It was a pretty bustling fortress. It was eventually visited by a travelling elf who would die there and go on to haunt the place as a wight or a banshee. She eventually sowed division amongst the different elves and murdered 2 of the guards before being killed herself. But she soon returned and turned many of the dwarves into flesh-hungry ghouls. The fortress was eventually abandoned, taken over by a tribe of orcs before being taken over by Cryovane there. So yeah. No, I got confused. That's a different place. So yeah. The fortress became a dark tomb surrounded by legends of treasure, which is why many adventurers go there. So at the peak of all the notable locations on the Sword Mountains, Ice Spire Peak is, of course, the one that demands the most attention. Pretty high, 25,000 feet on a northeastern spur of Ice Peak. The spur of Ice Spire Peak. Stone edifice is imposing. So it was erected generations ago by the warlord named Delisandra Anzar as a launching point for attacks against the orc tribes. Surrounded by ice curtain cliffs, it comprises of 2 different buildings connected by a narrow stone bridge. Ironically, it was not the orcs who brought around Delisandra's fall, but the mountain itself. One winter was so bitter, the warlord and the troops... Okay, that's interesting. It says warlord and her troops here, but it says his attacks there. Okay, that's a bit confusing. But yeah, basically, they were stuck out in the snow, couldn't get their supplies, and they starved to death. The orcs tried to take over the city after the inhabitants perished, but it was recently taken over by Cryovane, who made a chewy but welcome snack out of those orcs. And finally, there's a little bit here about friendly outposts. There's many different ones around. So we got Mount Galadrim, which is the home of Clan Forgebar. The rock gnomes, meanwhile, occupy other areas of the region, such as the settlement of Iriafimbul in the valley of Felrenden, and a secretive cave kingdom of Nomengard. Oh, right, before we look at our adventure then, we got one last bit of background lore, and that is the Order of the Gauntlet. The heroic holy warriors driven to eliminate evil from the Forgotten Realms. So, where there is darkness, they bring light. Where there is oppression, they bring justice. Where there is despair, they bring hope. A beacon of faith and resilience in the face of the ever-encroaching evil. The Order of the Gauntlet is hardly ambiguous in its ideals and goals. So, yeah, a pretty heroic faction within the areas of Faerun. They try to dispel any evil threats that may disturb the status quo. Though they're not the best at taking the fight to evil, they are usually more of a reactive force. Once evil has been discerned, they will then react. But this hasn't always held true with a lot of their members, as we'll see over the page. But yeah, it's predominantly a group of zealots, so clerics, paladins, fighters, and monks. And yeah, they all worship different gods. So Helm, the god of protection, Hoar, the god of retribution, Torm, the god of courage, and Tyre, the god of justice. So we got a few notable members here. So Niles Breakbone, who is a Condafan Templar of Tyre, commanded the emergency compound at Camp Vengeance amidst an undead plague. Sadly, though, his inability to adapt his tactics was eventually his downfall and tarnished his reputation as a defender of the peace. Barrowin Undur was a dwarven cleric. The warhammer-wielding Barrowin was a key player in the fight against the Cult of the Dragon in Icewind Dale. She later helped resist the return of the Dragon Queen Tiamat in an epic battle at the Well of Dragons. Javen Tarmikos, a human paladin who follows Helm. He was one of the Order's most faithful and fearsome members until he became disillusioned with their wait before acting beliefs. So this is the one I was mentioning. So yeah, during the siege of his home city, Helm's Hold, in 1479 DR, subsequently he left and established an even more zealous group, the Order of the Gilded Eye, which insists on preemptive attacks on evil. Finally, then we got Onfar Froom here, an amiable and high-spirited human paladin of Torm. Froom was, like Barrowin, a figure out on the front lines of the battles against the Cult of Dragon. He was even a delegate to the Council of Waterdeep. So, the tenets that the Order live by: faith is the greatest weapon against evil, extraordinary strength and bravery are required to perform the extraordinary tasks of combating evil, and it is just to punish an evil act, it is not just to punish an evil thought. And there are many different strongholds of the Gauntlet, so yeah, cities such as Neverwinter, Bryn Shander, and even Waterdeep here are mentioned. There's even Hawk's Nest on the Silvery Moon Pass, where they breed hippogriffs, which make impressive aerial mounts. So yeah, there we have it. That's all for our articles. Now, on to our adventure. We continue into the Deadlock Mine. So, a pretty lengthy adventure. It takes 3 to 4 hours to play through this one. Balanced for second level characters, of course. So you can use your pre-generated characters or create your own. So the story so far: the characters had ventured to the Deadlock Mine to find out what's happened to its mining crew of dwarf miners. Inside the mine, they met with the survivors who'd been driven into hiding by a gang of cruel goblins.
By the Mine Chief Galdebrand's request, the adventurers strike out to slay the goblins' Fey leader, so the dwarves may get back to mining. So yeah, we are continuing our adventure. So there's of course a brand new map as we are diving deeper into the mine. So we're following the tracks down into the different mine areas. So we've got the dressing mill here where the orcs will prepare the minerals and stuff before sending it to the surface. We have 6 goblin sentries here, so we can expect a pretty aggressive fight straight off. So D6, D8 are the different goblin ambushes. So 6, 7, and 8 down here. And 9 is the Feywild Grotto. So this is where we'll meet our Nilbog and have our final confrontation. So yeah, a pretty spacious map, and yeah, we're going to have quite a lot of fighting to do. So it's definitely going to take a while, as it says, 3 to 4 hours roughly. If you want to blow this map up, you can. Just remember, you've got to make sure each of these squares is 1 inch, ready, suitable for scaling with your characters, etc. And yeah, so treasure, there's a bag of pixie dust we can pick up. There's a possessing spirit, and of course we have to return to Vandalin and claim our reward. So stat blocks then, we have Nilbog, which is our wizarding goblin there, and his different spells that he can cast. And a reminder of the goblins there for their stats. Right, there we are. Right, let's bring everything back in, and I'll give you my final thoughts on issue 10. So there we have issue 10 of Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer. Really good issue. I definitely like the page on languages, best of all. I'm also pretty interested in how to roleplay NPCs, as I mentioned previously. I do enjoy being a DM, and I do like to give a good performance when it comes to characters. So yeah, we've got some nice background, Sage and Charlatan. We have a Charlatan in our group, and I believe we have a Sage. I can't remember what the background for our wizard is, but I think he's a Sage, I'm not sure. A couple of nice new bits of lore information. So the Sword Mountains, which of course, very imposing part of the Sword Coast. And yeah, we're bound to eventually travel to them, I reckon, in the upcoming adventures. Finally then, of course, we've got our mission then. Fantastic mission. It's, if you like a good fight, this is definitely the mission for you. A little less of a sit back and take it slow mission like the first part, which was more of a investigation sort of mission. This one is definitely a dive into the dark underbelly of the mine, where we have to encounter quite a lot of goblins. So yeah, definitely going to be a combat heavy adventure, so ideal for those who enjoy that sort of thing. I enjoy all sorts of role-playing. Diplomacy is always fun, even though it does seem intimidating. It can be quite fun just to sit and talk things out. But nothing beats drawing your sword and smacking a goblin over the head with it. So, freebie then, our dice, as I've mentioned, yeah, fun little set. Definitely going to be a collector's piece more than an actual gaming piece. As I mentioned, I will definitely give these out to somebody who has been afflicted by a shrink spell or a shrink potion, and just, yeah, make them roll really interesting and intricate dice. They are quite nice, definitely going to be adding to my collection, but I won't use these very much. Looking forward to the silver and blue sets that we'll be getting from issue 12 onwards. But yeah, there we have it. pretty good issue all round. Yeah, price as usual. I really wish we got a little more with the collection than what we do get for $8.99. With Stormbringer going up now to, I think it's $9.99. Yeah, I knew that would probably go up in price. They had way too much of a good selection of models. I know they have changed it a little bit. They took out 5 of the Vanquishers instead of having 10. It's just 5 now. And they gave us an extra squad of the Vindictors, I believe it was, to sort of compensate. And oh yeah, they also took out a second set of the Primal Layer terrain that we're supposed to have gotten. Kind of wish we got a little more terrain with the collection. I know it's not a big part for Age of Sigmar. Mostly it's bring your own terrain through terrain war scrolls and stuff. Yeah. I hope we don't see a price increase on this. If we did, as I've previously mentioned, I don't see myself continuing with it unless they really improve the total collection. I also don't see them possibly making it all the way to 80 issues. It just depends. I reckon they might get to 40, maybe 60. But yeah, they're pretty much covering a lot of stuff pretty early on. I'm not too sure what else they can give us in future issues. The contents is going to get very repetitive as well, so yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Keep an eye on Fohammer, of course. There's a link for his just the collection in the video description for you to check. Yeah, other than that, I think that's all I can say. So give me your thoughts on this issue and the collection in the comment section down below. Have you played through the mission? How did you get on? Were those goblins pesky and annoying, as well goblins usually are? Let me know. We'll have a good old chat. And of course, until next time, keep rolling those crits.